Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of Queerator. So my job is very unpredictable right now. I haven't been connecting with artists to do interviews like I normally do. And this is kind of the end of season 1 of Queerator because it's the summer and I've been doing it since September. So I thought it would be fun to do a Pride Month celebration movie edition. So I have brought on a lesbian that I do know. And it's my sister.
Yay!
And that's why this episode is called Little Nepotiz.
And so you named it?
That's what I want to name it. If any of you have seen the classic film, The School of Rock, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then watch the movie and then you'll know what I'm talking about. So Lucia's here and she's going to give me her top 5 Pride films. I also have 5 films. Actually, I've written down more than 5 films, but I have a feeling some of our films are the same. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are listeners going to be confused because we have basically the same voice?
That's a good point, actually. Yes. They
you
will
can
be
auto-tune my voice. I give you permission to do that in post.
Okay. Yeah, sorry to anyone listening. We kind of have the same voice because we're twins. Enjoy being confused, maybe. Potentially. But it's okay. Her name is Lucia, by the way. Lucia, introduce yourself. I forgot to do that.
Rude. Hello, my name is Lucia. I'm Poppy's sister. I use she, her pronouns.
You're also an artist. What kind of art do you do?
I'm mainly a filmmaker. I like to direct and write and also edit. And I also do some photography and some sculpture, sometimes drawing, sometimes kind of like Photoshop, digital art type stuff, just whatever.
And if you want to check out that art, it's very good. She has an Instagram account, which I don't know the name of, so I'm going to leave it in the link below. Not in the link, in the description. I'm leaving the link in the description below. Let's get into it.
Coolio.
Yeah. Lucia, do you enjoy Pride films?
I do. Yeah, I love finding new queer films because there's a lot of trash out there.
It's
and
true.
There's a lot of like queer films that are made by straight people that are just really terrible.
Blue is the warmest color.
Blue is the warmest color. Controversial
opinion. Actually, can we get into Blue is the warmest color and why you don't appreciate it as a lesbian?
I love to. So as someone who identifies as lesbian, I have seen Blue is the warmest color because everyone says you have to. And
it's a tradition.
It's a tradition.
That's how you get your gay card. You watch Blue is the warmest color, they stamp your gay card, and then you
take a quiz to prove that you've seen it.
Yeah, you take a quiz. They ask you what color is her hair, and you say blue.
One of the main questions.
Yeah, so any of you studying for that quiz right now, that's the answer. All right, go ahead.
So yeah, I saw it because it's kind of hyped up to be the quintessential lesbian movie.
Right.
And I love French movies, and it's French. So I was like, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to love it. And I saw it. And on top of it being not that interesting to me as a movie, like dramatically not that interesting, and pretty basic if I'm being honest. It's just like, it's made by a straight man, and you can totally tell. The way he portrays lesbians is just so, like, male. And there's no other way for me to describe it. Just watching it, it makes me angry because, like, and also I know that the actresses themselves were really uncomfortable throughout the entirety of the shoot. And he, like, pushed them to do things that they didn't want to do. And there's, like, a 6-minute sex scene that does not need to be there. And it feels more like a porno than it does a movie. And, like, the way he treats the subject matter is just so, like, disrespectful and, I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
But then again, there's lots of lesbians who do. So, that's just my opinion, I guess.
And, I mean, on that note, before we talk about movies, what is your opinion on the classic question, who's telling whose story to whom and why? We're talking, this is a very new conversation, I feel like, that's happening around any group that's been marginalized. So we're talking about Indigenous stories, trans stories, gay stories, all of this stuff. And basically there's one side of the argument says that only someone from that community should be telling that story. Or rather, if you're, like, if we're just talking about LGBTQ plus films, a gay story should be told by a gay person or someone within the community rather than a straight person. I don't necessarily agree with this when it comes to LGBTQ plus films, but how do you feel about that?
I think that if you're making a movie about a group in the LGBTQ community, you have to involve them. It's like that saying, don't make it about us without us.
Mm-hmm.
I think a straight man could make a movie about lesbians. I'm not saying that he couldn't. Well, on the topic of people who aren't from the community making movies about people in the community, Ang Lee making Brokeback Mountain. Yeah. He's a straight man. He's making it about two gay men, but he did it beautifully. That movie is gorgeous. Perfection. It is. Yeah. It's really good. It's an amazing movie, and I have no problem with that, with him being a straight man for that. Mm-hmm. I think it's just whenever you're making it about a community that's not your own, you should be consulting with that community to make sure that it's accurate, and you're not just basing all of your decisions and all of your story points on stereotypes or preconceptions that you have, right, and stigma that's in your head. Mm-hmm. Rather than... And just like the idea of that community that you have in your head. You should check that it's actually a reality. Yeah, you should be talking to real people and basing it on real people and real experiences rather than something you've made up in your head. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say it has to be a biography. Just means that then make a documentary. It's not a documentary. It doesn't have to be a documentary. Yeah. It's just like talk to people from that community and see what it's actually like rather than just picking a stereotype and running with it. Right. Or basing it on other movies you've seen, which are often based on stereotypes. And two, I think you should involve in the crew and in the cast people from that community. I would say those are the two. Yeah, because I think if you're not part of the community, and I'm only going to talk about this in terms of queer film, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to speak for Indigenous people or Black people or whatever it is, because I think that's a totally different issue, and I can't accurately speak about that because I'm not Indigenous. But in terms of queer film, I think if you say only a queer person can make a movie with queer characters, I think that's ridiculous. I think it's divisive. It's making it this precious thing that's so different from everything else that only someone who's different can make it. And I think that's not true at all. I think gay characters and trans characters should be able to exist in any film if they want to, if the director wants, if the director or writer wants. But I think if you are dealing with, if it's about them being queer, or that is a integral part of the story, yeah, I think you should involve, I agree, you should involve actors who are part of the community just for the sake of realism. Like, not even, just on a technical note, you know? Not even like it's offensive not to, because I don't think it's offensive not to. You could 100% make a story where the character happens to be gay, but it has nothing to do with the story, and there's no gay people involved, whatever. I don't really actually care. I disagree with you there. I would say that, like, even if you're making like a gay best friend type character, like a stereotypical gay best friend, it bothers me when it's like everyone involved is straight and they're just putting like this stereotypical gay guy as the best friend, mm-hmm, without like any kind of basis in reality. I would say even with those kinds of characters, like, just while you're writing it, even if you're not involving them in the actual production, try and base it on reality rather than just like, oh, I know what a gay man looks like. Ha ha ha. I'm going to put in this stereotype here. Yeah. I mean, that's a bit harder to do because as much as there's queer people working in the film industry, I think a lot of shows now have that token gay character in them, right? Mm-hmm. So does that mean that a gay person is working on every single show? I mean, considering how many people work on a TV show, I would hope there's at least one gay person there. I would hope it's not all straight people. Yeah.
But I mean, like, you'd say that that's a requirement, that they need to be there.
Yeah, I would say in the writing stage you should be basing it on reality.
But necessarily, like, one of your collaborators should be gay, or you should try to do research about it.
Well, if it's just like a side character who comes in every now and then, you don't need to have a collaborator who's gay necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying, like, while you're writing it, you shouldn't be just basing it on whatever stereotype you've seen.
Right.
Or the archetypical gay character.
Mm-hmm.
You should be actually like, oh, do I know a gay person? Do they act like that? Are they completely ridiculous all the time and are just like a joke in the middle of the series with no purpose other than that?
Yeah. And their only personality trait is that they're gay.
Exactly.
Although, to be fair, there are a lot of gay people who are very, like, flamboyant. But I mean, that does seem to be the running stereotype, to make it look like that's all gay people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Make a little effort.
Make an effort.
That's all I'm asking, is make an effort.
Yeah, that's true. All right. After that tangent, Lucia, take it away. Mm-hmm. Give me your first movie. Give me a number 5 slot for you.
Okay, so the way I've ordered these is... Oh, and by the way, I did break the rules a little bit.
Oh.
So,
spicy.
I have 7 things to recommend.
Mm-hmm.
5 of them are movies, though. Oh, no, 6 of them are movies. One of them's a TV show, because I couldn't not include it.
Okay.
But 6 of them are movies, because I couldn't pare it down to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll mention one of them really quickly to make up for it.
Say it really fast with no explanation.
Just throw it in there.
Okay. That's fine.
And I also, these aren't my 5 favorite queer films of all time, or pride films of all time.
Mm-hmm.
They're just 7.
They're just 7 of my favorite queer films of all time.
They're just 7 films that I tried to pick things that I don't think people would find necessarily on their own.
Okay.
They're not like Moonlight. I think that's an amazing movie, and I would 100%
it's definitely
recommend
one of my
it.
favorite movies.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite queer movies ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to recommend that one because it's so well known, and I think if you're listening to this and you're queer, you've probably already seen it.
Definitely,
so I tried to pick things that I don't think people
going
will
a little
know.
bit edgy.
I'm going a little bit more fringe.
Okay. I'm ready for this. Very excited to hear your options.
That being said, I do have a list of like 7 other honorable mentions that include some of the more famous ones, just in case you haven't seen those, because all of them are still worth the watch.
Okay, we'll pop those in right at the end. She's going to say them really fast. Name and director, even though you probably don't know the director for most of them.
I know the director for a lot of them.
Okay, well done. I will pop those in right at the end. And I'll also leave them in the description if you don't want to hear Lucia talking really fast. So, number 6.
I'll leave the TV show until the end.
Okay.
So, number 6 on my list is called Go Fish. Me and you actually saw this last night.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 90s film, which was directed by Rose Truche.
Yeah, or Trochet.
Trochet.
I don't know if she's French.
I don't know how to say her name, but it's spelled Rose Troche or something like that.
The movie's called Go Fish, and if you look up Rose Troche exactly phonetically, you'll find her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This was a really unique film because it centers around a group of friends who are all lesbians. And, well, actually one of them, we can get into that later, isn't completely lesbian. But it centers around a group of lesbians, and it's just so saturated in lesbian culture, and it's not based on stereotype, it's not based on, like, cute caricatures of lesbians. Yeah, it's just really real lesbian culture, and the way it's done is just, like, somebody who doesn't know how to make a film picked up a camera and said, I want to capture something from real life, and picked up the camera and made a story. It's very amateur. It's very rough around the edges. The acting isn't great.
But good to know, it's not naturalistic.
Yeah.
It's very stylized in terms of both, like, the editing and just, like, the way the story is written as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, it's so free in the way it's expressing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't adhere to the rules.
Yeah, it's kind of like Lesbian Godard in a way.
Yeah.
But not as insane.
Yeah, there's these beautiful, I hate saying this, but beautiful human moments.
So human.
So human. I hate describing something that's human.
So raw and human.
So raw. But yeah, that's all I can think to describe it. It's just very, like, real emotions that are simple, but they hit you. And there's also a part where they discuss fluidity and sexuality, where one of them says she's a lesbian who slept with a man, is how she describes it, and all the lesbians are kind of angry at her that she slept with a man and are like, oh, you're not a real lesbian.
Yeah, like you're a traitor.
You're a traitor, sort of kind of. So it addresses fluidity as well, and I think the entire thing, even though at its base level it's a cute love story, and it's really well done style-wise, it also has a lot of intelligent things to say that are sprinkled throughout. It's not just them having fun. Yeah.
I totally agree with that choice. I think, where can the people watch it? The people can watch it on Tubi, if they'd like. That's Tubi. It's free. There is an ad in the middle, but with this film, it's okay. Like, it ruins your mojo just a little bit, but it's not one of those films that, like, you're about to cry and then an ad comes up, which is the worst. I totally agree with that. And I think something else that's kind of interesting to consider is that while there are a lot of lesbians in media nowadays, I don't feel like I've seen a lot of movies where all of the main characters are lesbians, or even just girls who like girls in some way, not necessarily lesbians.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's not a lot of movies where it's like lesbian friend group goes out and has fun on the town, sort of. But there's
they're never like casual lesbian characters. Yeah. It's either like a big dramatic point, or it's like made in this really kind of like dramatic love story type way, and it's always tragic,
and it's always not taking place in this century.
Yeah,
which is irritating. It's always like in the past, and they're dealing with homophobia in the past, and that I find is a weird trope. And one of them's older for some reason, one of them's younger. Older, yeah. And yeah, so this was a really nice break because all of them were just kind of like chilling in the 90s and just having a good time living their lives, and it was lovely, very lovely to see, because I feel like there's a lot of gay films that are like that, but not a lot of lesbian films.
Yeah, lesbians are definitely less represented than gay men.
All right, let's move on to number 4, and why will it amaze me?
It's actually number 5, because I had 6,
right. I recall.
I broke the rules.
Yeah.
So number 5 for me is Tangerine.
Oh, that's a really good one.
So this one, I kind of broke my rule of not picking the most popular one, but I had to mention it. I had to give it some time.
Mm-hmm.
So Tangerine is directed by Sean Baker, and he shot the entire thing on an iPhone.
Multiple iPhones. Going at the same time.
Yeah, and this film is just chaos.
And beautiful.
And so gorgeous. But it also uses 2 real trans women to portray the trans women in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they're trans isn't really a plot point.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, they're trans and they're tracking down this girl's
boyfriend.
Yeah. That's the plot. And like it doesn't ignore that they're trans or anything, but that's not the main plot, which I really appreciated. And yeah, that film is just gorgeous and chaotic, and it's just so much fun. The music is banging.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
And they're all hilarious. It's like it's sad at points, and it's beautiful 100%, but it's also hilarious because
got a really good sense
all of the actors have such big personalities and just such one. I think some of the lines are improvised as well, and yeah, it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Should I announce my number 4?
Yes, please. Go on to number 4.
Okay. So, my number 4 is called And Then We Danced.
Ooh, what a good choice. Oh my god, I'm so proud of you.
Wow. This is a movie that me and Poppy saw at the TIFF Next Wave Festival 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was a festival that happened right before COVID. But we got to see it in theaters, my point. And it's a Georgian film.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've never seen before.
Yeah, which is actually pretty cool because, you know, you don't really hear of Georgia. It's such a small country, right? So you don't really hear like, oh, you don't really think to yourself, what's it like to be queer in Georgia? And then you get this movie and you're like, oh, okay, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, they exist, obviously. I just Personally, I hadn't seen it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so it's unique in that way. You get to see a whole other culture. But this movie is so beautiful to look at as well. The colors are astounding.
Yeah, the entire color in that movie is so rich.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the reds. They really pop.
Yeah.
And also, if you're into Georgian dancing, and if you don't know what that is, I didn't either before I saw this movie, and now I'm really into Georgian dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up on YouTube or watch this movie, either one. But they dance a lot, as the title suggests, and the dancing is super cool. Yeah, even the main guy is a Georgian dancer. That's why I think his name is Levon. But that's why he was cast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I realized I didn't give like a one-line description of it.
So pretend you just started and give a one-line description.
Mm-hmm. So I'm picking, and then we danced.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
so surprising.
So yeah, basically what it's about is this guy who's a Georgian dancer, and he's trying to get a spot in a dance company, a professional dance company, and while he's at a school to learn Georgian dance, and they're going to be picking someone from that school to be in the company. This new guy comes in and joins the class, and he's amazing, and a romance sparks between those two. Okay,
so let's talk about your number 3.
Yes. Okay, so number 3 is Tomboy by Celine Sciamma.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. The reason I picked this film is because A, it's a fantastic film with children are the main actors, and they're amazing.
They're so good.
They're such good actors.
Yeah.
And also because of its ambiguity, and it's just kind of exploration of more than one queer topic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a little girl
or little boy.
We're not really sure.
Yeah.
In the movie, little girl, but who knows what happens after the movie.
Yeah.
So it's about a little girl who moves to a new place, and when she goes out to go and play with the local kids, because her hair is quite short and she kind of dresses more like a tomboy, everyone assumes that she's a boy, and she just never corrects them. So to all the local kids, she's a boy, but at home she's considered a girl. And she never really talks about how she feels. While I was watching it, I kind of interpreted it as this is a trans boy who's not out yet.
Yeah.
Or this is just this child's way of exploring their gender during childhood. But there's some parts near the end that kind of made me question whether that was the intention or not.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we shouldn't give anything away.
No, don't spoil.
Yeah, but I feel like it more talks about just exploration and questioning rather than a trans little boy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like. I know some people actually had issue with this film because they thought it was a bit dismissive. There was discussion about this film within the trans community of no, Mikkel is a boy, and the movie didn't treat it that way, and all that stuff. But you'll have to, you know what? We shouldn't get into that because that'll spoil the movie.
This is why it's on my list, is because you could interpret it as Mikkel exploring their gender identity, or you could interpret it as a trans story, or you could interpret it as a lesbian story, or just a child exploring sexuality and gender freely. And that's what's so special about it, is it's just exploration. There's no answers to anything. It's just a child freely going about the world, being who they are when they want to be who they are.
Right.
So my number 2.
Your number 2
is, again, more of a popular one, but I had to include it because I felt obliged.
Okay.
It is Pariah by Dee Reese. This movie is often, if you look up best lesbian movies, it'll be on that list.
Right.
So it is more popular. It's more in the public eye. But I feel like a lot of people have heard of it, but they haven't seen it. So I want to encourage you to actually go and see it.
Yes. Please see Pariah. It's so good.
It's one of those movies that, I couldn't tell you one thing that's wrong with it. Watching it, I have no complaints.
That is unique. Usually you have complaints about movies. When we finish watching things, she'll tell me what she thinks could have been done better. We watched The Godfather and she had complaints. So that should tell you. She had critiques of The Godfather because obviously she's more wise than Francis Ford Coppola.
Obviously. I know more.
You just know more about cinema than the greatest director of all time. Yeah. So Just to give you an idea, she had no complaints about this movie. That's pretty special.
Mm-hmm. It's just the way it portrays its main character is phenomenal. And while I haven't experienced a lot of the things that the main characters experienced, I could connect to basically everything she was going through just with the emotions.
Right. And it's emotionally universal, which is nice, even though the story is specific to a person.
Exactly. And I read a review recently that said that it has empathy for the antagonist at the same time as showing us that what the antagonist is doing is wrong. And that makes the story so much more complicated, and I completely agree with that.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, number 2.
No, this is number 1.
Number 1.
We've arrived.
We've arrived at number 1.
This is predictable for anyone who knows me.
Yep.
And I'm sure
I can already
you
guess.
know what it is. I'm
Should
sure.
we say it together?
1, 2, 3.
I killed my mother. Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's predictable.
Proceed.
This is my favorite movie of all time. Not just my favorite queer-themed movie.
It's not even queer-themed, I wouldn't say.
It has a queer character in it, so it qualifies.
It's a pride movie.
It's a pride movie, but Xavier Dolan, the director, would probably be really mad if I described it as a queer movie, because he hates when people do that.
Yeah, so we're going to call it a movie. It's a movie.
But it involves a queer character, so it makes it on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's my favorite film of all time is because it's the movie that convinced me to be a director, just out of its pure awesomeness.
Just for context, we watched this movie together because we looked up a list of queer films, actually, and this was on the list, and it was by a French-Canadian dude that we'd never heard of before, and Lucia was like, yeah, let's just do it. I was a bit resistant because it was called I Killed My Mother. I thought it was a horror movie. It's not. It's a very misleading title. And then after we finished the movie, Lucia cried for 20 minutes straight, not really telling me why. But we eventually found out that it was just, she loved it so much. It was just si belle, that she just started crying.
That's a reference to the movie, by the way. She's not just being pretentious and speaking in French.
Don't underestimate my pretension.
Yeah, no, Xavier Dolan is one of those directors that every time I see one of his films, almost every single film of his, I've cried afterwards, either because it's sad or because I just loved it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it overwhelms me.
Mostly because you love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the case of I Killed My Mother, there's just a lot of things to connect to. There's a lot of nostalgia that just hit you. And I don't know, I cry at a certain point every single time. And I've seen that scene that I cry at 20 times at least. And I've cried
100 times. Yeah. So what is it about, Lucia? What is it about?
I'll tell you what it's about. It's about a teenager named Hubert, who lives in Montreal, and he lives with his single mother, and him and his mother have a very tumultuous relationship. They're constantly angry with each other, they're constantly snapping at each other, and it basically follows their relationship and how they navigate that conflict. But on the side, he's also not out to her, and he has a boyfriend, so he hasn't told her about that part of his life. It's it hits you so deeply, and it just feels like the person who made it had to say this or he was gonna die. Like, he had to make this film. Mm-hmm. And it's just like him onto the page.
Yeah, not to mention it was this director's first film. I can't say his name enough. It's Xavier Dolan. And it was his first film. So it really was something he wrote when he was 16, semi-autobiographically, and then he produced it, he directed it, he starred in it when he was 19. And he
also edited it.
He edited it, and he mostly funded it himself. So it's a pretty amazing film, considering all those things. Yeah.
Super low budget, super amateur, but it's also, I would argue, like, it's for sure amateur, but it looks really good for its budget. It looks really good. It's not like a slop together film. Mm-hmm. It's pristine. It's an amazing film, and I highly recommend it, especially for Pride Month. It's on CBC Gem right now for free.
Yes, that is a great... Okay, listen, if anyone doesn't know that CBC Gem has free movies, download it. They interrupt with ads, but just download an ad blocker and you're good. Mm-hmm. I loved all of your 6 choices. Mm-hmm. Now I understand that for Pride Month you want to plug a TV show
A
that
certain
you
TV
think
show.
everyone should watch.
Yes. So, my favorite prideful TV show. I'm calling it a prideful TV show.
Ooh.
So, it's called Feel Good. And it's on Netflix. It's, well, at least the first season is about a lesbian couple. One of them is someone who's been dating women for a while, and the other one just kind of came out, and this is the first woman that she's dating, and it follows their relationship throughout the first season, and it's really funny, it's really quirky, it's really just hits you in all the feels.
Because I've never felt so seen.
It's so relatable.
Then the main character, May, who's also played by Mae Martin, who's a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone Canadian, creator of the show, writer and director and
From
star.
Toronto.
From Toronto. Like, come on. Homegirl. Mae Martin. Her character, I've never felt so seen. Like, that character feels like a part of me 100% that's on screen, and you get to a certain point in the show where you're like, God, why does she know me like this?
Mm-hmm. And also, May is kind of gender fluid, non-binary, and believes a lot in talking about fluidity and gender and sexuality. So I have a feeling that the second season is going to explore some of that as well.
Which would be really cool.
Because they kind of hint at it in the first season. But the second season is coming out on June 4th, I believe. This sounds like they paid us to say it, but I just really want people to watch it so that I can talk to you about it.
We're not being sponsored by Netflix, but Netflix, if you want to sponsor us,
Go
I'd love
ahead.
that. All right, Lucia, very quickly, with giving no explanation, tell me your honorable mentions.
Okay, so The Favorite by Yorgos Lanthemos. Closet Monster by Stephen Dunn. Of course, Stephen Dunn. Pride. Moonlight, which you all know about Moonlight, by Barry Jenkins. Boy Erased, not sure who directed that, but you all know it, I'm sure. Lawrence Anyways by Xavier Dolan. Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's a musical, what more could you want? But I'm a Cheerleader. It's a black comedy about lesbians.
Natasha Lyonne.
And has Natasha Lyonne in it. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, a classic. Another musical. The Way He Looks, which is, I can't remember the country, I think it might be Argentina, but I don't want to say that and then be wrong. And Kill Your Darlings. Again, can't remember the director's name, but it has Daniel Radcliffe and Dane DeHaan, or DeHaan, I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
You know that guy.
Danny.
That guy, you know that guy.
I know that guy.
And my last one, which I know a lot of people are going to be angry at me for, is Persona, because it's not explicitly a gay film, but I choose to read it as a lesbian love story. Thank you. That's the Bergman one, by the way.
Okay, look. Cool. Thank you for being on the show and sitting with me for a long time to talk about these movies.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I hope so.
Finally.
It better be.
9 episodes, and she hasn't asked me, and I was just really sad. And then she asked me, and I was like, but of course, on my favorite podcast, of course I will.
Yeah, so thank you for being here. I enjoyed this conversation. I hope the people listening are going to watch those movies.
You're going to link all the movies down below, right?
Of course I will.
Okay, good.
Link all of the movies. And yeah, expect the rest of this type of episode for the rest of the summer. Just because, as I said, my job's super unpredictable, so I won't be having on guests, but I live with my sister. So we're going to do...
Wait, I'm coming back.
You might be coming back. Oh, we are doing a round table, actually, so there's a round table coming up next episode after this one. And that is about labels, so stay tuned. It's really exciting. I'm bringing back Francis Jarvis, one of my favorite guests. And I'm also bringing on my friend Angie Lawrence and Lucia.
I love that.
Who's not my friend.
I love that I'm not your favorite guest.
No, you're not my favorite guest.
Down below.
I like Francis more than I like you, so.
That was really insulting.
Yeah.
I'm never coming on again.
Yeah. There we go.
Next time you want queer recommendations, don't come to me.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to keep up to date with it, you can follow us on Instagram at Queerator_podcast. It's June right now, so that means it's Pride Month, and even though we can't go to Pride because of COVID, you all can do COVID-safe things. I don't know, celebrate with people in your household, make a rainbow cake. That's what I'm going to be doing. Yeah, on that note, stay proud, and I'll see you next time.